I never thought I'd be that guy, the one who gets blindsided by his wife's betrayal. I mean, Sarah and I had a solid marriage, at least I thought we did. We'd been together for 8 years, built a life, started to settle into routines. But lately there had been signs. She started coming home late more often, claiming work had her stuck after hours. I'd ask about her day, and she'd brush me off with some snarky comment or a quick, "Nothing much, just busy." Then there were the little things. Her phone buzzing constantly late at night, her avoiding my questions about where she was or who she was with. I chalked it up to stress and work pressure. Maybe I was naive, but I trusted her. Or maybe I just didn't want to believe she'd do anything to hurt me. Things started feeling off when she became more dismissive of me, more aloof. She'd snap at me over stupid stuff, like leaving a sock on the floor or forgetting to pick up her dry cleaning. Normally, she was the kind of woman who'd roll her eyes but then make a joke out of it. Now, she just looked annoyed, like I was a burden. I could tell she was hiding something, but I didn't have proof. I kept telling myself I was overthinking. But then, one day, I noticed her phone kept disappearing into her purse whenever she got a message. She'd lock it or keep it face down on the table. That was unusual for her. She'd never been secretive about her phone before. I started feeling suspicious, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I tried to ignore it, convinced maybe she just had some work thing she didn't want me to see. Then, out of nowhere, I caught a glimpse of her phone one evening. She left it on the kitchen counter while she went to the bathroom. I saw a message notification pop up and I was curious, maybe stupidly so. I glanced at the screen and my stomach dropped. It was from someone named Lily, and the message was suggestive, flirty even. "Can't wait to see you tonight," it said. My mind spun. I felt this rush of anger, confusion, and heartbreak all at once. I couldn't believe it. My wife, my partner, was planning to meet someone else. And after all those late nights she said she was working, I felt betrayed, humiliated. The worst part, I didn't want to believe it, but everything pointed to something more than just innocent friendship or work chatting. And that's when I realized I'd been blind, and I had to face the truth. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept turning over the message in my head, trying to convince myself it was a mistake. Maybe Lily was a coworker or someone she knew from her book club. But the way that message was phrased, the timing, the way it made my stomach churn, that wasn't innocent. I remembered the way she'd been acting lately, the late nights, the quick, defensive responses whenever I asked her where she'd been. My gut told me she'd been sneaking around, and now I had proof. I felt this strange mix of anger and betrayal, like the ground had shifted beneath my feet. How long had this been going on? Was I just some fool who didn't see it coming? The next morning, I decided I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. I needed answers. I waited for her to leave for work, then I took her phone and scrolled through her messages. There were dozens of texts, many from Lily, all filled with flirtatious comments, plans to meet after hours, promises of secrecy. My heart sank deeper with each message. I thought we had a good marriage. I thought I knew her. Turns out I was dead wrong. When she got home that afternoon, I was sitting on the sofa trying to keep my composure, but the anger was boiling over. She walked in, immediately noticing my face. "What's wrong, Jake?" she asked, her tone sweet but with an edge. I pulled out her phone and showed her the messages. Her face flickered with surprise, then quickly twisted into annoyance. "You must be reading my texts now, really. That's so fucking invasive," she snapped. I looked at her, my voice trembling a little. "You've been lying to me about where you're going, who you're seeing, and these messages. I found out everything. Tell me, Sarah, who is Lily? Were you planning to cheat on me?" She rolled her eyes, scoffing. "Oh, please. You're just being paranoid. Lily's just a coworker, a friend. You're overreacting as usual." Her tone was dismissive, like I was an idiot for even questioning her. I felt my jaw tight. "Don't lie to me. I saw the messages. I know what you're doing. How long has this been going on?" She crossed her arms, giving me that bitchy smirk. "Look, Jake, I don't owe you an explanation. Honestly, I'm tired of your accusations. Maybe I need some space." Her words hit like a punch. I realized then that she was lying, that she was hiding something way worse. I felt deeply hurt, but mostly angry. I hadn't thought she was capable of this level of betrayal. I wanted to scream, to shake her, ask her how she could do this to us, to me. But I kept my cool, knowing that losing my temper wouldn't help. I told her I needed time to think, that I wasn't going to just accept this. She smirked again and said she'd be at her sister for a few days. That was it. She stormed out, leaving me alone with her phone and this crushing realization that everything I believed in was a lie. After she left, I sat there for a long time staring at her phone on the coffee table. Every nerve in my body was screaming. Part of me wanted to smash it to make her pay for what she'd done, but I knew that wouldn't fix anything. Instead, I started digging deeper into those messages. I needed to understand exactly what had been going on, how long she'd been lying, how deep this rabbit hole went. It didn't take long. The more I read, the worse it got. She'd been meeting Lily after hours, using the keys she borrowed from her office. Apparently, the receptionist, Lily, had been helping her sneak around, scheduling those after-hours sessions, pretending it was just for therapy. But honestly, she'd been using the therapy office as her secret hideout, and I'd been walking around blind to it. I couldn't believe I'd been so stupid. I'd trusted her with everything, my feelings, my life, my heart, and she turned around and betrayed me like I meant nothing. My head was spinning with rage and heartbreak. How many nights had I sat there, thinking she was working late? How many conversations did I have, trying to fix things, when she was out screwing around with that witch Lily? It was like some sick game she played, and I was the fool who didn't see it coming. I was furious at her, but also hurt in a way I'd never felt before. I'd always thought she loved me, that she was committed. Now I wasn't so sure about anything anymore. The worst part, she had lied so convincingly. She told me her therapist was just a professional, that nothing inappropriate ever happened, that she only went there to try and fix us, to get some help. But the truth was, she'd been using the sessions as cover for her affair. They'd meet in the office after hours, with her sneaking in using keys she borrowed from work. I couldn't wrap my head around it. I felt like a damn fool for not noticing earlier, for trusting her so blindly. I kept going over every sign, every detail I missed, every conversation where she'd sounded just a little too dismissive or evasive. And Lily, she was no innocent. She had to know exactly what was going on. I found messages where Sarah clearly told her they had to keep everything secret, that they couldn't let anyone find out. That meant Lily was not just a pawn, but an active participant in this. Betrayal. I felt sick. I had every reason now to believe that the woman I'd been married to, the woman I loved, had been lying to me for months. She'd been having sex with the receptionist right under my nose, in the very office meant for healing and trust. I kept thinking about that, about how she'd used my trust like some kind of weapon. I wondered if she'd ever loved me at all, or if I'd just been some kind of fool, holding on to a marriage that was already dead. By the time I finally looked up, it was dark outside. I felt hollow, like I'd been punched in the gut. I realized I couldn't keep pretending this wasn't happening. I needed to plan what to do next, how to confront her properly, if I even wanted to. But right then, I knew that everything I believed about our marriage was gone. Just like that, a huge part of my life had been turned upside down, and I was left with this gnawing feeling that nothing would ever be the same again. The next few days were a blur of anger, sadness, and pure confusion. I couldn't focus on anything other than what I'd uncovered. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her smiling, heard her lying, felt that sickening betrayal. I knew I had to confront her, but I didn't want to do it impulsively. Part of me thought, maybe I should just pack my bags, leave, and forget her. But a bigger part of me knew I needed answers, truth, no matter how ugly. I also realized I couldn't just sit around waiting for her to come back and pretend nothing had happened. I had to plan my next move carefully. I started by making sure I had every piece of evidence I needed. I printed out the messages from her phone, every flirty, suggestive text, every plan to meet after hours. I wanted to be as prepared as possible because I knew she'd deny everything or spin some bullshit excuse. I also did some digging into Lily. I found out her last name, looked her up on social media, and saw that she was married with kids. That made everything even more disgusting. She wasn't just some innocent receptionist. She was actively cheating with my wife, and they'd been doing it in my marriage's supposed safe space. Therapy office. By the time I was ready to face her, I felt numb but determined. I texted her, telling her I wanted to meet, that I needed to talk face to face. She responded that she was busy and would call me later. I knew better. I knew she was trying to avoid a confrontation. But I wasn't backing down. I wanted to hear her lie, wanted her to face what she'd done. When she finally called back, her voice was defensive, irritated even. I told her I knew everything, that I had all the evidence, and that I wasn't going to be played for a fool anymore. Her response was classic Sarah: deflect, deny, blame. She called me paranoid, said I was overreacting, and that Lily was just a friend. She insisted that I was crazy for even thinking she was cheating. She tried to turn it around on me, saying I didn't trust her, that I was insecure and insecure men push women away. I could hear her bitchy attitude in her voice, the way she dismissed my feelings like I was some jealous fool. But I wasn't having it. I told her I knew she'd been sneaking around, that she'd lied to me for months, and that it was over. I said I wanted her out of the house and that I was done pretending everything was fine. Things got intense quickly. She started crying, saying she loved me, that it was just a mistake, that she'd never meant to hurt me. But her words rang hollow. I saw her for what she truly was: selfish, manipulative, willing to destroy what we had for some cheap thrill with Lily. It was over. I told her she needed to leave and that I'd be staying at my brother for a few days. I couldn't even look at her without feeling this surge of rage and heartbreak. She kept arguing, trying to convince me she'd change, but I knew better. This wasn't some fleeting mistake. This was who she was. I was so furious, yet deeply hurt. How could she do this? How could she betray everything we built? As she packed her things and left, I felt a strange mix of relief and despair. Part of me was glad she was gone, glad I didn't have to face her anymore. But another part, this dark, aching part, felt like I'd lost the person. I thought I knew. I'd been married to a liar, a cheater, someone who used me and our marriage as a cover for her secret sex life. I kept thinking about all the nights I'd spent trying to fix us, all the promises she'd broken. And I knew I'd never be able to trust her again. Not that I really wanted to. The damage was done, and I was left standing in the wreckage, wondering how I was going to pick up the pieces. The days that followed were the hardest I've ever experienced. After she left, I felt like I was walking around in a fog, numb and hollow. I kept replaying everything: her sneaky little lies, her false tears, the way she so easily betrayed the vows we made. I'd always thought she was the one, the woman I'd spend my life with. But it was all a lie. It hit me like a punch to the chest that I'd been living in some kind of illusion. I had to process a flood of emotions: anger, sadness, betrayal, and a kind of deep disappointment that I'd fallen for someone so manipulative. I also felt a strange sense of clarity. For years, I'd been trying to fix our marriage, to make things work, despite the signs that she was pulling away, that she was hiding something. Now I saw how blind I'd been. I was angry at her, but I was also angry at myself for not seeing the truth sooner. I kept asking myself, how could I have missed it? How could I have been so naive? The trust I'd once had in her was shattered into a million pieces, and every time I thought about her with Lily, I felt this intense rage. I wasn't sure what I was more upset about: the betrayal itself or the fact that I'd been played for a fool. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't just sit there feeling sorry for myself. So I started focusing on myself, going back to work, talking to friends, seeking some kind of support. I also began to look into legal options, thinking about the divorce, the financial implications, the custody arrangements if we had kids. The thought of losing her hurt, but mostly I was angry that she'd tossed away what we had for some fleeting sex with Lily. I kept remembering the good times, the plans we made, the dreams we shared. All of it felt so distant now, like a movie I'd watched but didn't recognize anymore. I tried to reach out to my brother, Dave, for advice. He knew Sarah, they worked together at some point, and he'd always thought she was a bit of a bitch, honestly. When I told him what had happened, he didn't mince words. He told me to forget her, to get rid of her, that she wasn't worth it. But it wasn't that simple. I still loved her, or at least I thought I did. Still, I knew deep down that forgiving her wasn't an option anymore. Trust was gone, and I didn't see how we could rebuild what was broken. The pain of her betrayal was like a weight I carried everywhere. Every day was a struggle to keep it together, to not spiral into some dark place of regret and anger. In the quiet moments, I'd think about Lily. I'd wonder if she ever thought about what she was doing, if she knew how much she ruined someone's life. Honestly, I hoped she felt some guilt, but I doubted it. She was just a user, a selfish woman who saw my wife as some kind of conquest. And Sarah, she was no different. I saw her for what she truly was, a manipulative, bitchy woman who could lie and cheat without a second thought. That realization made it easier to let go, but the scars would stay with me for a long time. I learned a lot from this, about trust, about how some people just aren't worth the sacrifice. And I knew I had to move on, no matter how much it hurt. It's been a few weeks now since Sarah left, and honestly, I'm not the same guy I was before all this happened. I've gone through every emotion possible: anger, heartbreak, betrayal, and finally, a strange sort of acceptance. The hardest part was knowing that I had trusted her with my life, my feelings, and she'd thrown it all away for Lily, for some fleeting thrill. I keep asking myself why. Why did she do it? Was I never enough? Sometimes I think she just enjoyed playing the part of the victim, the innocent wife who got caught up in some game she couldn't control. And maybe I was just convenient, someone to come home to after her secret meetings. That thought stings worse than anything else. I've learned a lot from this experience. First, trust is fragile and I'll never take it for granted again. Second, people can be incredibly manipulative, even those you think you know. When you're in love, it's easy to ignore the signs that something's wrong. But once the truth comes out, there's no going back. I also realize that sometimes you need to cut your losses and walk away, no matter how much it hurts. Holding on to someone who's betrayed you only prolongs the pain. I've decided to file for divorce, not because I want to get revenge, though I won't deny feeling a bit vindictive, but because I know I deserve better than someone who cheats and lies. Looking back, I see how much I let myself believe in a fairy tale that was never real. I thought Sarah was the woman I'd spend forever with, but she was just a pretender, a manipulator hiding her true nature behind a mask of charm and bitchy attitude. The betrayal cut so deep, but I'm starting to see that it was also a wake-up call. I've become more cautious, more aware of what I need from a partner: honesty, loyalty, and respect. I won't let myself be blindsided again. Now I'm focusing on rebuilding myself. I've started therapy, not just to handle the heartbreak, but to understand why I stayed so long in a marriage that was already broken. I want to learn to trust again, but on my own terms. I want to be the kind of man who doesn't need someone else's validation, who's strong enough to walk away from someone who doesn't value me. In a way, I feel relief. Finally, I'm free from her manipulations. And even though it hurts like hell, I know I'll get through this. Because at the end of the day, I've learned that the only person responsible for my happiness is me. And I refuse to let someone like Sarah ever do this to me again.